Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Best Books Ever. I am Tyler, and today is a big day, okay? We are not only finishing Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins, chapters 15 through 27, it's also the end of the series. Um, we are going to read the prequel as well, so not the end of our little Hunger Games run here, but the end of the trilogy, the end of this story for all intents and purposes. Um, we're obviously going to talk about it, right? But I will say, just off the jump, um, very good, very very good. I think that this ending delivers on pretty much everything that you would want it to. Um, I don't know. I don't know. Well, I want to talk about like the feeling that I think the ending elicits and how important that is, but I think I'll save that for the very end, as sort of like a not like recap, but like a I don't know the word, but we'll do that. Trust me, because I have a lot of thoughts on not even the story itself, but just on like how it was delivered and how I think Suzanne wanted you to feel at the end of the story. Um, yeah, so we'll get into that at the end though. Um, So I guess maybe we won't start with the end. No, we will. We will. Okay. Um, big climax to the story. Um, I don't know, man. There's a lot to talk about the end. I feel like maybe I will. This will be like the one time that I leave the end for the end because I think there's so much to talk about. So let me get into some of the other stuff more towards like the middle of our section that I wanted to touch on, and then we'll save all the big stuff for the end. So um, we have we have some very sad stuff. We have, I like the moment where Plutarch is talking about their mission, and Katniss and Finnick both go up to the holo thing. I actually know that he's using a holo specifically, but it is the whole like holographic map thing that he's using, and they kind of touch it, and they're looking at all the pods, all the different markers and stuff, and they both call what they're doing their mission the 76th Hunger Games, which would be the next one after the one that they were just participated in. I really like that moment because I think a big thing, especially the second book, delivers this, but I think it continues through this third book is all the victors. Um, all the victors and them being connected and them having shared experience, right? Especially these guys, Katniss and Finnick, along with others, right? Joanna, Peeta, all that stuff. But like, they've gone through two Hunger Games at this point, something that almost nobody has gone through, and even less that are actually still alive. Um, the shared trauma and the way they think about things, and just their mental states, and all of this. For them to look at this and them almost like laugh out of just hysteria of like this is just another Hunger Games. Like we're like on the outside, it's like I think Katniss said something like, "Why'd you even make us go through training? We are the most qualified people you have." Because again, they're looking at this as like a Hunger Games. So the two-time victors in Katniss and Finnick are again the most experience you could possibly have. Training here does not even match up to all the training that we've done. Again, that's kind of what they're saying on the outside, but on the inside, I feel like it's so much more, so much more despair in the feeling of this of like we have to go in this again. We have to do this, not a second time, but a third time. We have to because the pods are literally just the type of stuff that be in the Hunger Games, and then even looking at the second Hunger Games, where it was like, oh, each section of the clock is a different thing. That's literally what they're going into right now. It's not a big circle, and it's not a clock, but they are just like so. It's crazy that at this point, I remember, I think. when we finished up catching fire, it was like, I don't think we can have another Hunger Games. Like, I don't think that makes sense. Like, how would that even happen? And then we get into this book, and it's like, oh, they did have the 76 Hunger Games. It's just not exactly what we would have imagined. Um, I don't know. I just really like that moment. Um, let's see. Another good moment that I liked between Peeta and Katniss. It's very small, but I wanted to note it was um, Katniss telling Peeta that we protect each other. It's it's what we do, and I really like that because I think that's true, right? Like that's so true. Where she didn't say we love each other, we're soulmates, anything like that. It's just this is what we do. This is part of who we are as people. And it's true. Like ever since the first Hunger Games, like um, I think Peeta kind of went into it a little earlier, wanting to protect Katniss, but they both went into that being like, we got to protect each other. We got to make sure we both get out of this. And then, especially in the second one, when Katniss was like, no, I'm going to keep Peeta alive. Like, clearly Peeta had the same thing, but for her. Um, and in everything they've done, even outside of the games, whenever they are able to, they try to keep the other one alive, the other one present. And so for that, with everything that Katniss is going through, both physically and mentally, and then the same thing with Peeta, they both kind of cling on to this where even if they're not actively trying to like, if that's not like the first thought that's running through their heads at any given moment, it is in the back of their heads at all times where it's like, even if they don't understand why, there's that little nagging voice where it's like, keep Peeta alive, keep Katniss alive. Um, so I don't know. I like that because it shows how far they've come and really what these games have done to each other, whether they really love each other. They don't. Again, Peeta says he's loved Katniss ever since, they were kids or whatever, but like, even if that wasn't true, that they actually don't love each other, it just goes to show that the effect that the games can have and the fact that their games specifically had on each other, with each other, where it's like, whether we like it or not, we are pushed together. We are in each other's corner. Um, they do take that next step of actually being in love with each other. But even if it never got to that point, they are partners for life. Like that's just, there's no denying that. Romantic partners, I think, is a step further than that. But just life partners is inescapable for either of them. Which is really funny because we get into another point I wanted to mention was when they were underneath Tigress's little shop, and Katniss was not sleeping. She was supposed to be sleeping. She wasn't. She heard Gale and Peeta talking. Remember this? And they were all kind of buddy buddy with each other, and they were talking about what happens. Like if whichever one of us dies, Katniss is gonna be with the other one. And then, it's like, oh, well, what if we both live? It's like, oh, well, now, that's the worst possible, scenario for Katniss because now she's going to have to choose. Now, honestly, that kind of takes it off of us because now she has to, bear the burden. And, they were like, oh, no, I know exactly how Katniss would. It's not going to be hard for her. I know how she's going to choose. What did they say? Katniss will pick whoever she thinks she can't survive without. And that was it. And that really hit Katniss hard, because I think she even broke it down in her head where she was like, they didn't say who I love, or like who I can't be without, who I can't survive without. That is such a cold and like animalistic way of choosing a mate. Again, it really breaks it down to like animals, where it's like, no, this is purely just for like reproduction and um, you know continuing our like race, our species, right? Like it has nothing to do with the like human touches with feelings and love and all this stuff. And so she sits there and she's like, I can't believe that they view me as that like Gale would say that and Peeta wouldn't refute it. they both must think that's true. Where like that's all I see in a partner is who I need to survive, who I need to live, not love, but just not die. It's like oof. And again, I think that is true to a certain extent. I can't fully blame Katniss though, because again, this is a theme, and this theme will go throughout, and it will be a big part of kind of my like very end thoughts of this whole series when when I get to them later. But I think a lot of this has to do with what the games have done to her, what they have turned her into. Where, I mean, even before this, right? And now we're kind of eking into my closing thoughts, but all I'll say in terms of this point, where it's like all her life, ever since her dad died, she lived to survive. That's all it was. It wasn't just District 12 is a poor district. It was she had to do what she had. Every decision she made was to survive and to keep her family alive as well. She didn't get to feel things. She didn't get to be happy. Um, even the little bit of, possible romance that she was very confused about with Gail growing up. When she met Gail, she kind of just put to the side because she, you know, that side of her brain yielded to the more immediate side of her brain, which was like, love is cool, being happy is cool, feelings are great, but how does this help us get food tonight? How does this make it so, Prim is going to have dinner and she's not going to starve to death? Um, and then obviously going with the games and what that's done and everything. Again, I'll kind of be a little more, uh, you know, maybe a little more eloquent at the very end. But, just in terms of that point where it's not her fault, I don't think that they would see her that way, but that is definitely what she ended up as. At that point, again, we have like the ending and the epilogue, which we'll get to. But yeah. Speaking of feelings and sadness specifically, we do have some losses that I want to point out. We have a lot of losses, right? A lot of people are gone, unfortunately. But a couple of the ones that I do want to mention in particular, first one is Boggs. Boggs is someone who, in hindsight, had Katniss's back the entire time. And then, we see him get really upset when he seems to think that Coin is out to get Katniss. At the very end, he gives Katniss his holo. Um, Even tells her with his last breath, "Don't trust anybody." He says a couple other things too. I didn't write it down, but just like, "Hey, don't trust anyone. Do what you came here to do." Um, we see his legs get blown off, and just it's not funny, but like if your legs are blown off, probably not gonna survive. You know how much blood loss and how quickly the blood loss will accumulate when your legs are blown off. Like that's insane. So no saving him. Both legs, like one leg maybe, both legs I don't know. But yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to Boggs because he, again, it's all in hindsight too, where I think for a lot of the time that we've seen him, he was just, he's just kind of this like stoic, like doing his job, like maybe doesn't really like Katniss all that much. We're not sure, but with each encounter between him and Katniss, it's like, oh no, he does care about Katniss, and like there is something in him that wants to protect her, and does believe in her, right? So I thought that was really cool. Sucked that he died, obviously. It would have been really cool to see him at the end and be able to see everything play out. But another one that hurt was Finnick. Those like lizard mutts, those like abominations, they ripped Finnick apart. Very sad to see, especially since again, everything that he went through that we didn't even see because he was before our time, he was before our games. And then through the second, through the quarter quell, and then like everything we learned about him, everything he did for Katniss and Peeta and all that, and then continued to do for Katniss specifically, and then him getting Annie back and that being like my life is complete, and then them having their wedding and like that bringing him out of the mud, that helping bring Annie out of the mud, mentally, and then for all that to happen and then him lose his life. It's just like, oh, it's so sad. Like, it's so sad. Um, Finnick was a good one too. We talked about it in each part basically, where it's like the more we see Finnick, the more we see Finnick do. It's just like he he's the real one. He deserves so much more. Um, yeah, so very very sad there. Um, and I guess we're just gonna get to the end because there is it's like dominoes where it's like there is about 17 dominoes I have to get through, and they all lead one right into another. So let's get into it. Let's get into the meat of this section. Okay. First thing, Prim dies. It's not funny. It's just ridiculous, and I still can't believe it. Prim doesn't die. She gets murdered. Um, Very sad to see, right? We see all them kids out there. First wave of the silver parachute bombs go off. Prim, along with many, many other medics, rebel medics, hop in to help. And then a second wave goes off. And there's even the very touching moment where it seems that about a second before that second explosion goes off, Prim finds Katniss and is able to lock eyes with her. And man, that's very sad. Just like that last look before she gets killed, and like there's a you know there's the idea of going back, and this gets into my thoughts of the series as a whole and like how it ends and like the feelings I feel like it's supposed to elicit. But looking at Prim's life, we obviously look at Candace's life and then maybe Peeta's and whatever, right? But look at Prim's life and it's like her being in 12 and then her father getting killed when she's very very young, her mom going stoic, her older sister having to become her mom and like probably never home out hunting and all that, her barely clinging to life it seems every day, her getting picked at the games, at the Hunger Games. She has one entry in thousands, possibly in that bowl. She gets picked and then having her older sister volunteer. Now she has to watch her older sister go through Hunger Games, all this terrible stuff. Sister wins. Sister is now has a crazy amount of trauma. Came out of that game's different. Now you have to watch your older sister become that, and then have your older sister go into a second Hunger Games. Has to watch her go through all that, then get out of there, and then you have to watch her have just trauma compounded on top of trauma, and then her become the Mockingjay, this symbol, while again you just have to kind of stand at the silence because really nothing you can do, and then you get the little moments where you're able to finally talk with her and try to help her. You're almost becoming the older sister, doing everything you can, right? Having to live through all of this and then getting killed at the end, getting blown up, being a part of this war. Medics are not supposed to be part of the war. You know what I mean? Medics are supposed to be like, we help people. I am not a soldier. I do not have a weapon. I am not killing anybody. I am purely helping. They're supposed to be off limits, especially someone as young as her being only 13, or I think under 13, I don't remember. Just being like, she must have got special permission to get there, so that she wasn't even really supposed to be there. Like, it's so sad. Like, it's so sad. That one hurt. Prim didn't, listen, if we're talking about, Finnick deserved better, Prim absolutely deserved to live a long life. She was the purest soul in this entire story. But yeah, following that, we have the question that is not answered and will probably never get answered unless we somehow get a sequel book where Katniss is present. Well, I guess that doesn't even necessarily have to be true, but um, unless we get a sequel book of some sort, which I don't know that we're going to. Um, I don't know that we would really want one anyway. Um, we get this question of who dropped those bombs? Who actually did that? Because you immediately think, oh, it was Snow, right? Like the idea there is that Snow would drop the bombs on the kids, basically forcing District 13 to step down and be like, kind of showing that we will do anything. We will kill the kids, you know, scaring them and trying to, I don't know, trying to intimidate 13 into surrendering, into being like, we don't care. We will decimate everything and everybody to win. You don't want this. You don't want the war to turn like this. Um, Plus, like, he's the one who kind of gathered all the kids there. He's the one who, had the armed guards. He's the one, you know what I mean? So a lot of stuff is pointed in his direction, except when Katniss talks to Snow, Snow says, that wasn't me. That was not me. That was Coin. It was a brilliant move by Coin too, like using the parachutes, which are typically a capital thing, a Hunger Games thing, using that against us. Having the like double explosives where the first round goes off, gets in the medics, and has the second round go off. That's very clever by her. That also framing it as it was me, Snow, who did it, immediately turns the tide on like everybody. Not a single soul after that would be on Snow's side. Speedy end to the war. We will do anything it takes. So now we have that question of like, was it actually Coin who did it? Because what Snow is saying makes sense. He even had a great point where he said, if we had a hovercraft, don't you think I would have used it to get out of here? Don't you think I would have used it to go to some like underground bunker or something and try to regroup and try to, you know what I mean? Like, why would I still be here? The other side to that would be like, if it was District 13's hovercraft that dropped the bombs, why wasn't there any attempt to take it down? Like you should have. You don't have anything. And then the argument against that is, was the capital truly that depleted? Which we kind of had inklings of from previous, from early in the book, where it's like, I mean, they did shut off District 2, the nut, right? That was the whole thing. So it is plausible that they literally had no answer for the hovercraft, and it was District 13. So a lot of back and forth. Obviously, Prim's death, doesn't matter who it was, who dropped it. Prim's death is sad, it is tragic, and it is, the, in my opinion, the saddest death in the entire series. Although Rue is definitely up there. Um, Putting that aside, I do think it is a very valid question. It is something that will eat away at Katniss for the rest of her life. Um, which is funny because I feel like Gale could answer that. you know? Like, I mean, my thoughts on this are I absolutely. I think just Katniss's conversation with Gale confirms that it was District 13 because, and I will say, Katniss asked Gale, just kind of got straight to the point, like, were those your bombs? And Gale says, does it matter? Does it matter? You're going to be thinking, it doesn't matter because you're going to be thinking about it every day for the rest of your life anyway. And it's like, okay, true. Doesn't matter who dropped them. I am going to be grieving for Prim until the day I die. But if it wasn't Gale and Beatty who made those bombs in District 13 who dropped them, then I feel like Gale would, the answer Gale would have given would have been like, no, that wasn't me. because why wouldn't you, if if that wasn't your bombs that killed Prim, Katniss' little sister, then why wouldn't you immediately be like, no, that wasn't me. That was, I mean, not to my knowledge, that wasn't me. It wasn't me. Beatty didn't talk anything about anything like that. So it was either someone else in 13 that somehow made them, or it was Snow. But if they were yours, then you would give the answer of like, you know, in your head, you're not going to admit to it, because if you openly admit to it, then that would destroy your relationship, and that would that would hurt Katniss even more. Even if she knows that you do it based on this answer, the fact that you didn't say it, I think, helps just a little bit. Um, you know what I mean? So I feel like it does confirm. So that's even worse. Terrible stuff. More more terrible things that have happened. The victors voted to have another Hunger Games. This was a big point of contention. When I was reading it, I was kind of on the fence of like what I think they should do. I think I immediately try to take the moral high ground and I say, oh, well, you should vote no, because this is basically like what would be the point of all this fighting at this point? Like 75 years of Hunger Games, of oppression, all this stuff, and then we win and we're immediately going to put their kids into a Hunger Games. It's like, but doesn't that kind of defeat the point? Like, their kids also, and again, you'd be like, oh, well, we had to. It's like, yeah, but like you putting them, like, at that point, is it like, are we any better than them? Like, are we gonna have a Hunger Games next year too? And be like, oh, well, there's other capital people whose kids didn't, were in the Hunger Games, so they didn't suffer properly, so we have to have another Hunger Games, like, like I like Beatty's answer where he's like, it sets a bad precedent. Um, However, I do understand why all the people who said yes, because everything they've gone through, going through the Hunger Games, not once but twice. All this, again, I've used the word many times, but like trauma, you know, um, not only with what's happened to them, almost dying, not just from the Hunger Games, but day in and day out, the past however many months, that they've been in this war. But then having everyone they love, their family and friends, murdered, tortured, all this. It's like, it's hard to say that you wouldn't want revenge of any sort, even though this Hunger Games is not going to fill the void of all of that. It's impossible. Um, it is hard for me to say, I mean, I would like some revenge. I would like a little bit, a little bit of revenge for what happened to me. So I do understand that. Then we have the moment where Katniss is supposed to kill Snow. That's what she wanted. That was one of her stipulations. That's not the right word, but I can't remember the right word. She wanted to kill Snow. We got him up there. Instead, she kills Coin. She shoots Coin through the heart, I think. Kills Coin immediately. Snow falls, coughs a bunch, hacks up a bunch, and he dies. He either dies from whatever, like poison stuff that he had, or got trampled to death. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how he died. That's very interesting to me because she had every right to kill Snow. Everything Snow did to her, right? Her choosing to kill Coin, her choosing to take that moment to kill Coin, I think is very powerful. Because we obviously had the whispers that Coin wanted her dead. That Katniss is really the only person that could oppose Coin when it comes to being president and being the ruler of this new world. But also we have the little things, little things here and there that we've talked about, previously about Coin, and it's like, how they run District 13. It's like, is that, some of the decisions that they make is like, should we, do we want all of this on a bigger scale? Um, and there's the question, right? Of like, again, not confirmed, but in my mind, it's confirmed that Coin dropped those bombs. And if you want to think about it for just an extra second, who do you think gave permission for Prim to go out there? Coin. Most likely it was Coin. So, if you take that dot and connect it, then we have another dot that connects everything, and it's like, oh, then that would mean that Coin wanted Prim to go out there, knowing that she was going to die, knowing that that was going to be the last straw for Katniss, having any sort of doubts as to what they're doing. Boom, boom, boom. Katniss now immediately hates Snow's guts, gonna kill him, is fully planted on the side of District 13. It all makes sense, you know? So at that point, if Katniss believes all of that, whether it's true or not, she believes all of that, I'm taking Coin out for a lot of reasons. Biggest one, obviously, if you are the reason, if you did indirectly kill my younger sister, you deserve something worse than death. So at that point, I get it, killing Coin and taking her out. It's like more and more, it felt like Coin was going to become another Snow. Maybe not in every single way, but in the ways that mattered. I think she was going to become another version of Snow, and that's not what we wanted. Especially with her like little things. Like her even suggesting another games. Again, I get it. I get why some of the victors voted yes, but even her having that little push of like, oh, well, what if we did another games with all the children of the high-ranking capital members? It's like, where does it end though? And again, I'm not even saying that she would have instituted a regular Hunger Games, but like that is something. Again, I love Beatty's response where he doesn't just say no. He says that would set a bad precedent. No, I vote no. So, and then Snow dying on his own or getting trampled, whatever. It's like, I thought that was cool. If it was him dying on his own, I think that's neat because it is kind of his own doing that he got killed. You know what I mean? Like he didn't win in the end. And then if it is him getting trampled, it's like, kind of it's not a very honorable death, and that's not what he deserved. He did not deserve an honorable death, so that, I think that would be fitting as well. So, so, I even like the very, very last thing where he's like, oh, Katniss, I thought we agreed not to lie to each other, and you look back and it's like, I don't know that he ever lied. You know what I mean? I don't know he lied about anything. He was a very evil man, but I think everything he told Katniss was factually correct. Um, so again, if that is the case, then everything he told Katniss about Coin is true as well. And at that point, it's like, you gotta kill her. So, and now we're getting to the very, very end, kind of when everything is winding down. This is, I think, emotionally the most powerful moment in this entire trilogy. Katniss, she has to leave. She's kind of getting motivated a little bit. Kind of like get up and go out and do things. She's not fully there yet, but this is the start. And she goes out, and Buttercup, the cat, walks up on her and starts meowing, and clearly wondering where Prim is. And Katniss has to tell her, or tell Buttercup, that she's not here. She's not coming back. She's never coming back. She's dead. And I don't know, man. I think just like the image of her, just she keeps saying it in different ways and getting more and more angry, not at Buttercup, but just at the situation. And then Buttercup, she keeps meowing and meowing more so out of like anger, like, where is she? What are you, you know, bring her back. When is she gonna be back home? And then you can even imagine like that turning into cries of like, no, again, a very human emotion to have, kind of matching Katniss's, to where it starts out as anger and it kind of turns into grief. Um, yeah, I just thought that was very sad. I think up until that point, Katniss didn't properly grieve for Prim. I think she just kind of like shut herself out, which I think is what she's done in similar situations, right? And when she gets overwhelmed or whatever, I think she just kind of shut down and became a ghost for a while. And I think my take on this is that Buttercup is kind of what caused her to grieve, not just what happened there that I just described, but also because Buttercup is like remnants of her past, of before the games, of not when everything was great. Obviously we had that a very long time where the mom was not doing anything, and she was trying to hunt and stuff to survive, and whatever, but like a simpler time, if anything. And Buttercup is kind of a representation of that. So for Buttercup to come back and be like, where is Prim? And for Katniss to finally and like, not that she didn't know Prim was dead, but like I think that was the moment where it finally hit her of like, she's not here and she's never gonna come back. um yeah, I'm like I'm like getting choked up right now because it is sad. It's just like it all comes together, and like I already mentioned kind of Prim's timeline, but all of that just to lead to her seemingly being a pawn. um and just adding to Katniss's list of like people that she feels died because of her. Her own sister, I'm sure she adds to that list. And it's just, that was one where I like, I had to put the book down and I was like, I need a second because that just hit so hard for me, you know. Um, I don't know. That again, the most emotional moment in the entire trilogy is them both grieving together. Um, yeah. Later on, just something I thought was neat was that Katniss decides, what I believe she's doing is she's making a book trying to remember all of the other tributes. Maybe other people as well, maybe just sort of like her memories and her times with the games, that all being there. Because she does mention Senna as well. So she's kind of making like an I don't know, a recounting of all this stuff. I think she's more so focusing on like the happy stuff. I don't know if she's writing down all the sad stuff, like how people died or whatever. But I don't know. I just thought that was a really neat idea. So, that way, we're assuming it won't. But as time goes on, decades, centuries go on, stuff gets lost to time. Um, but you like making a physical account of everything. I think that is honoring them in the way that they deserve. Because these people, especially the ones at the end, those victors deserve to be remembered. So yeah. And then we have the very end leading into the epilogue, which is, I like the moment where Peeta brings that all back around, where he says, I can't exactly what he says, but he's like, you love me, real or not real? And Candace says, real. And then it's obviously a callback to them, Katniss, but also other people trying to reconstruct Peeta's memories, and then him saying something and then ending it with real or not real, and they get to tell him no, that happened, or no, it didn't happen, or whatever. So I really like that, and them sort of accepting each other's love. I think at the very end, especially I don't know, kind of goes both ways where Katniss was always weird about love, and like she never admitted both to anyone but also to herself of like, I don't know that I love Peeta, I don't know that I love Gale, like maybe I do, but I don't know how or in what way. But then also on Peeta's end too, where you can say, oh well, Peeta's loved Katniss forever. It's like, yeah, but then his memories got all messed up, and trying to have to like build them back. So it's like, where does he stand when it comes to Katniss as well? So I don't know, for it to end, for their love and their relationship to be such an integral part to their story, and for them to end loving each other, I think is very nice. And then the epilogue, them being older, I think they said like 20 years. Um, and they have two kids, a son and a daughter. I just think, again, very, very nice ending. They both hold on to that trauma and that baggage. They will never get rid of that. But I like that they are moving in the right direction, and they are living as much as anyone can live, having gone through what they did. That is the book. I do want to give some thoughts on kind of the trilogy as a whole. I was thinking about this, and we read other series on here, right? Like we've did the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson, the first trilogy, not the subsequent one. We did the Percy Jackson series, and then we did the Kingkiller Chronicle. Kingkiller Chronicle is not finished, so that doesn't really go into my point that I'm about to make. But and no spoilers for those either. Even if you have followed me through all these journeys, which is amazing. Don't want to give spoilers to anyone who hasn't and still wants to. All I'll say is those books, if we have a like common touchstone, but then also just other stories in general, like other books or other movies or shows or whatever. They have conflict and characters and all that stuff, and a lot of times the conflict turns into sadness and despair and maybe even loss of life. But then usually, not always, but usually I would say more often than not, the very, very end, the resolution after the climax will be some sort of like reconciliation of the characters and the feelings and all this stuff. And it'll end on a note where it's like, hey, we won, everyone's happy now, or at the very least we are rebuilding and everything. And I think you are supposed to come off of that with a sense of a sense of like, not like pride, but like sort of pride of like everything we've been through, and look at who's left, and they're doing good and they're going to prosper. And I think that is true in many ways for the series that we've read. I think that this one's a little different though. I think that this ends, like we just mentioned, this ends with Katniss and Peeta loving each other. Gale doing his thing in like, what was it, 2 or 4 or something, I forget. The mom obviously grieving and obviously probably never come back to 12 because of the memories there and what we've gone through. But she's starting a hospital, and Haymitch is Haymitch, he's probably going to drink himself to death, unfortunately. But then we have like, even Plutarch, who, kind of iffy here and there, but, he did bat for Katniss when it mattered. And, he's over there being like the senior or whatever. And, Paler being the president, I think is a great fit. I think that's awesome. I think she was very good in the little times that we've seen her. So so like overall, them being like, no more, like Coin being dead, like we're not doing games, we're not doing that, like we are, like all the districts are trying to rebuild and all that. So I think overall, at the very end with Katniss and Peeta having kids and being happy, it seems, and still going through some stuff, and we'll never stop going through that. But overall, there is that kind of fluff at the end where it's like, we're here, we're rebuilding, and we are pushing as much as we can, pushing the bad stuff. To use that term lightly, behind us. However, I think that we still end with a sense of hollowness, and not in the sense that like the writing is bad or anything like that. Just like even with all that good stuff at the end, all the little cherries on top that they're trying to give to us, I still think we are left with this lingering sense of like, was it all worth it? And the answer at the end of the day is yes. Like future generations, as long as it sticks, as Plutarch was hoping, as long as it sticks, future generations should be exponentially better than what we've had so far. However, in a more immediate sense, in a more like emotional sense, was it all worth it? I've already kind of mentioned it, but like all the death and destruction and you know, all the districts being broken, and we obviously have, like I said, the saddest moment in the whole, but like Prim getting murdered, like Rue, Finnick, um, all these characters that had to lose their lives for this, and places got bombed, and you know we had to see these crazy monstrosities that should have never existed. Psychological torture, right? Cinna, forgot about Cinna being murdered just for his role in all of this. Like, um, everything. Like I have to make this episode another 30 minutes just to name every single bad thing that I can remember from the three books that we read. It's like, was it worth? Like, we have that hollowness of uh, like it's good at the end. Like we're happy and we're like, hey, we're getting better, but like it doesn't. And again, I totally believe that like this was intentional. Like this is how we're supposed to feel, in my opinion, because it's just like we're happy, yay, we're doing it, but like it's not happy, like it is, but it's not. Um, yeah. So I don't know. I guess that's just kind of what I wanted to leave y'all with, of like, more so than the other series we've read. Again, I'm not saying that this feeling isn't present at all in the other series we've read, because that isn't necessarily true, but I think this one does it the most. Where it's like, no, like you're supposed to feel sort of melancholy at the end, where it's like, yeah, there's good stuff. Again, there are those like cherries on top, but don't forget about everything they've gone through, um, because that will never go away. Um, yeah. So that is it. That is it. That is the book. That is the trilogy. Please let me know what y'all thought of this section, this book, this trilogy, all that good stuff. Yeah, I just sort of still have the feel I'm trying to get out of it. Okay, so that is over. We are now going to move on to the prequel book. So next week we are going to start the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which was, if you didn't know, that is the prequel book to this trilogy. I think it came out like 2010, I want to say, somewhere around there. It was definitely after all the other books came out. All the books were out for a while, maybe like 2012, even something like that. I don't know. Yeah, for what I know, again, this one I haven't read, so this will be a fresh experience for me as well. I know nothing about this book, no specifics. The only tidbit that I know of this book going into it is that I believe it is a prequel, and I believe we're focusing on President Snow and his like rise to power. I think. I don't know when. I don't know if like, are we gonna see like the creation of the games? Is that where this is going? Because that'd be kind of neat. Um, yeah, again, I don't know though. I haven't read a single page of this book, so um, this will be interesting. We're gonna read chapters 1 through 10. Um, which is very nice. Where I'm going to split this up into three parts, and the book itself is split up into three parts. Part one is chapters 1 through 10, so that works out very nicely. Because this book is a little longer than any of these three have been. Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay. So three parts I think would be sufficient. And yeah, that's it. We're gonna get into that, and then obviously in a couple weeks when we finish this, I'll talk about what our next series is gonna be. But yeah. Oh, and when the book comes out, I think next year is when they're saying it's gonna come out. Suzanne Collins did announce another prequel book, which focuses on Haymitch's games. So that'll be fun to do as well. But yeah, that is it. So until next time, let's start up Songbirds and Snakes, and we'll see. We'll see how this compares to the pretty dang good trilogy that we just finished.